This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
This is the November Commission on Disability meeting. We're gonna start with roll call. So we are missing Molly. I don't know if she's coming in, but Rob said he wasn't gonna be able to make it, and then Jamie is away, I think, or something like that. So we're not missing anybody else, are we?
Right.
Well, I tried, I did
Bryce.
try to plug the hybrid version to Bryce, and he did say he moved to Florence, and I guess he said his internet connection is bad.
Okay, so he might not be able, if he comes in, it'll be on that.
He's probably not gonna.
Not gonna come.
It was a don't bother sending me the link type tone.
Got it, okay.
So, Bryce doesn't
do you
have
think
to.
he'll come to the meetings in the future, or he doesn't want to be on the commission?
I feel like when he's back moving around, and
Yeah.
he will come in person with me and be one of my people. Right now, I've just been taking the opportunity to let other people see what we're all about.
Me.
Yes. So the minutes, if they're, I just want to have the minutes approved unless you guys found something that is wrong in the minutes. No, nothing wrong? All right, I'll make a motion for them to pass. Thank you, all in favor that was here.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Stan. Yeah, I guess we could do, why don't we do introductions real quick?
Okay.
So, yeah, so Angelique, I'm the chair.
I'm Mary, I am the clerk.
Okay, this is Jenny. She is on the Riverside board and comes here and sits in on the meetings. And I'm Jeff Brown. I'm an employment specialist at Riverside. Also live in Easthampton, and I'm a parent and I have disabilities.
I'm David, and I work at Riverside, and I'd like to be here too.
I'm Jeff Bagg, I'm the city planner and the city's ADA coordinator, and I'm a member of the commission.
Great. I'm Jeff Creed. I'm the regional director for a company called Butterfly Effects. I'm also a board certified behavior analyst. Nice to meet everybody.
Hi, I'm Molly Goodwin. I'm on the board.
Eli Damon. I'm the vice chair of the Commission on Disability.
And who are you?
I am a board.
Your board?
No, board.
Oh, on the board.
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
My board. Board.
Oh.
Board, my board.
I'm Stan Diamond, board member.
Anybody? No? Nobody else? Okay. Thank you, guys, and we're gonna have you take it away right up from the start.
Sure. So I guess I'm just coming to tell you a little bit about what I do and what our company does. My role is a regional director, and so what we do is work with young kids on the autism spectrum. This goes from age 0 to 22. A lot of the kids we work with are much younger, so we work together with earlier intervention, which goes 0 to 3. We work in their homes, and what we're trying to do is form a relationship with not only the families, but also the children that we're working with. We look at it like a mentor role. So any young kid is still developing. They're developing their language skills, they're developing their social skills, their play skills, self-care. And some kids that we work with have some difficulties where they get a little bit frustrated. And so you expect a 2-year-old to throw a temper tantrum every once in a while. What we don't want to see is self-injury or potentially aggression towards someone else. So sometimes you might see some hitting, you might see some biting. And really what it comes down to for us is identifying why might this occur. And a lot of times with little kids it's because they're not able to communicate for themselves yet. So expressing this is what I want, this is what I need, this is how I'm feeling. Sometimes it's just, I just need a hug, or I need a break, or I just need someone to show that they care about me. So our big focus is building that relationship with our kids, but also their families, and trying to help develop strategies. This person learns a certain way. If we can figure out the best way to teach them, then they can really reach their potential. So it comes down to the science of applied behavior analysis, which really is just an individualized method to teach skills. So a lot of times, again, it's those communication skills. That's the biggest thing we focus on. And if we do our job right, we're able to teach someone in a way that they learn best, that's most beneficial for them. We tend to focus on what we call a more intensive model. And by intensity, what I mean is the more hours you get of something, the more successful we're going to be. And there's a lot of research that supports that. For us, it's if we're seeing a kid 2 days a week, we have to go at our pace. If we're there 5 days a week, we can go at their pace. And then we're able to acquire some of these skills and try to make a big difference. I'm also very interested in making sure that they're getting something out of this, not just they're learning, but they're having a good time. I feel like if we're working with someone for 2 or 3 hours at a time, it really should be the funnest opportunity they have for the entire day. So I'm not leaving a house until I get at least one good belly laugh. I want to know definitively they're really enjoying themselves. They're playing, they're learning through play, they're relaxed, they're engaged, they're happy. The family can sit in on session. They can get, sometimes it's an opportunity to just get a couple things done around the house. I've had families that just, can I read a book for 30 minutes? I don't have an opportunity to do that. And so being able to give a little bit of, not a break from their kid, but an opportunity to not have to worry as much as they normally do because, these kids are still, they're learning, they're growing. And our goal is to be at a point where we kind of work ourselves out of a job. We don't need this level of care anymore. Maybe you're able to enter kindergarten and work with your friends and you can join a soccer team or do outside of school activities. So we work through private insurance. They're the ones that cover this. And, it's intended to be about a 2-year treatment model where, again, we're just trying to help develop some of these core skills and making sure that they're set up for success. We don't use any punishment type strategies. Everything's reinforcement based. A lot of praise, a lot of celebrating, laughing, constantly on the floor, rolling around with kids. Just that's where they want to be. So that's what our focus is. We came here from our main branches in Florida. I've been up here for over 10 years. I started this branch myself about 3.5 years ago. And where I previously worked, we just had a giant wait list, 400 kids deep. And a wait list doesn't work like it does in a restaurant where eventually you're next. It's just your name on a piece of paper. So that was the big thing when we agreed to do this, is we were never going to have a wait list. So yeah, that's really just kind of what we do. We just try to help people. It's human services. It's, I've always interested in helping others, and this is just kind of the method for me. There's a lot of great services out in the community. We just want to make sure people know who we are. How was that?
It's good. When you said private insurance, so no Mass Health? Or?
No, also Medicaid as well. Medicaid's 95% of what we take. We're a network with everyone. The only ones that are difficult would be, let's say you had like a Blue Cross plan of like Las Vegas, because we don't see that very often. We've had to get a network, but we have Mass Health, Tufts, Health New England, TRICARE. We have Aetna, Cigna. We're also in Connecticut and Rhode Island. So not just private insurance.
So what do you, when do services end? Is there like a certain goal you're trying to reach or not necessarily?
Obviously it varies. A lot of it's based on what are the family's priorities. And for some of our older kids, it's what is their priorities? What are the things that they're looking for? Sometimes they're able to tell us, here's what I want help with. A lot of times when kids get older, you want to kind of fade back a little bit and work more independence. With 2-year-olds, it's a little bit different. They're still developing all those foundational skills. So a lot of times what will happen is it's about availability. So a 2-year-old that turns 3 in Springfield now goes to a full day school, where years past they went to a half day school. And for some families, they just feel like that's a little bit too much for that age right now. So we fade off at that point, and just, if they need us, they can reach back out. You don't want to overwhelm these kids, but a lot of times we have different assessment tools we might use, something like the BB map. There's ABLS, AFLS, PDBR. There's so many different ones you might be familiar with. These might just be random letters I'm throwing at you too. But they're not curriculums, they're assessments. So it's just, in general, what are some of the areas that we can help out a little bit more. But we discussed discharge criteria with the family at the very beginning. What is it that we can be the most helpful with? Because you're right, at some point, we have to graduate from services. It isn't supposed to be a forever thing. I know it's a roundabout answer.
So what would you work on with a teenager? Examples? Would it be getting your license or
If we're qualified for it, that's not something my staff are trained in doing, but setting small goals for them to achieve. So if getting a license was a terminal goal, helping them break it down into what do you need to do first. Maybe, applying for your permit would be the first step.
Right.
or working out with your family the time to practice driving, but we wouldn't be
No.
physically taking them to do that. And for some kids, it's just setting up they set themselves up a schedule or something like that, where after school, here's the things I want to do and here's the things I need to do, and being able to work out, doing a little bit of each of those things. Social situations were a big focus for those age ranges before COVID, and then that kind of turned everything upside down. We don't do a lot of teenagers, where most of our kids are around 5. Yeah.
Do you, like, I know Easthampton will refer people on IEPs to, behavioral services, which I assume is similar to what you would provide, like.
It's exactly what we provide.
Yeah, right, yeah. Do you take referrals from the Easthampton school system? Or, yeah.
We're more than happy to. I don't know if our message has gotten out to Easthampton.
Okay.
It's very rare for us to have someone in this area. A couple in Southampton, but maybe that's just a matter of us not extending our marketing reach yet.
Yeah. And let's say, so most of it I'm understanding is it's early intervention before the school system would take over.
Not most of it. It's a big focus.
Big
The average age of our clients are about 6 to 8.
Oh, okay. How would, assuming a parent came to me, maybe suspecting a diagnosis, at an early age, knew something was off, didn't have anything, didn't have stuff in order yet with insurance and diagnostics and all that. How could I direct them to get help so they could get a program?
Is it safe to assume at that point they have early intervention in place already?
I'm not sure if it is.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It's a hypothetical.
So that would be the first step. Working with their PCP, they'll usually do something called an MChat,
Okay.
and that's where they're looking for
Yeah.
some common markers. And they might recommend, hey, I think you should look into early intervention. They'll do an assessment and evaluation and determine if your child qualifies for this. And sometimes it's not autism; it can be slight speech delay. These are really little kids. They develop at the pace that they develop. And then that's where the referral would come in for something like a diagnostic screening. I will say wait lists for that can be about 18 months. My biggest recommendation is to get on everyone's wait list even if you just want to rule it out. It's for some people, by the time they get in there, they've already lost the opportunity to get these type of services before 3 because they were on a wait list for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Boston, if it's possible for someone to go to Boston, that's their best chance right now. Beacon has an assessment center, and Bay State does, Shannon Kay's team. I would just look for everything if that's the case, because you don't want to just wait around. And then I would also tell someone when you get on a wait list that if there's a cancellation, please call us and we'll make arrangements to go. That's the best advice I can give for people that are waiting a long time.
18 months, that's a standard neuropsych?
That's how long it's taking right now because the need is so
I
tremendous.
believe that my daughter has ADHD and was referred. I was amazed. The clinician was amazed too at how long it was.
Yeah, hopefully someday we'll be able to expand that, bring a couple new licensed psychologists in place that can just shorten that wait list.
Let's see. Before I just stop asking questions for the remainder of the session.
It's okay.
I know quite a few people whose perception of ABA is just discrete trial training over and over again, like, almost like training. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard that perception enough. I don't have to elaborate. What would you, when you mentioned the fun part and the child-centered part, the person-centered part, what would you say, like, how would you phrase that in a nutshell about how Butterfly Effects incorporates that?
Sure. We use something called natural environment teaching. I would say discrete trials are still part of our program when it becomes the best strategy for someone. For a 2-year-old, I don't want to put a 2-year-old at a table for 2 hours running trials. I don't want to sit at a table for 2 hours. For some kids that we come in with, that historically that is how they learn best, and for some kids that's their own preference.
Yeah.
But for me, if I could work on 15 different skills, I can work on matching, I can work on some like receptive identification, just labeling things. You know, yeah, it looks great on paper. Did I make a difference to that person's life? I'd rather work on things like, hey, can we go do something different now? Or I'm thirsty, or I'm hungry, or I want to go see my mother, or I love you. Like, those are important skills for people that, for me, it's a bigger focus than proving I can collect 100 data points on matching a cat with a cat and a dog with a dog.
Yeah.
And I'm not discrediting those type of programs they might incorporate, but we shouldn't be doing discrete trial teaching because it's more convenient for us, just when we can be teaching things more naturally, even if it's harder work for us. We are the ones getting paid to do this. So, and a lot of times it is easy to teach a staff, this is what discrete trials look like. It's very clear. It's one setting, there's no distractions, child sits here, you sit there, your bag of toys are there, you run this number of trials of this particular program, and then you're done, they get to go do something different. But if we can teach the same skill on the floor playing with their favorite toys, I think that's more beneficial for the individual. And for me, I see a point in discrete trials, but also the point should never be because it's more convenient for us.
You have a question?
What is discrete trial?
Sure, it's basically you're putting yourself in a situation where you have limited distractions. A lot of times it might have something like a divider so that, you know, these are very common in like a clinic or a classroom where you have a child at a desk, there's like their back is to a wall, you have a table, you have specific programs you're running. It could be with picture cards, it could be, you know, manual signs, imitation, but you're asking someone to do something, they do that, and then you give them some sort of like reinforcement. So it might be, can you show me clapping your hands? Great job, you earned your toy. So it's very specifically, rigidly done, where with the natural environment might be running that same exact, teaching that same skill, just trying to do it in a more natural setting. So it might be something like, let's do if you're happy and you know it. And we're saying, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. And then we're still providing that praise and encouragement. It's just done in a more natural way.
My question was, how do you get referrals?
There's a lot of different ways. People like yourselves could give us referrals. Sometimes the families reach out to us directly. Doctors are a common one. For early intervention, it has to come through EI because that's a separate contract. But anyone over 3, schools are another source. You can find us on like social media and stuff too. But anyone can give a referral.
So, and from what I'm understanding, just so I have this right for the notes, your way of working with a child is to make it fun to learn.
Yeah.
Not like when we were in school and we had to sit, you know, like this. You want it to be
because they go
fun.
to school. This is their home. So yeah,
Okay.
learning a skill in a way where you don't know that we're actually there teaching you. They just think we're here to play. Yeah, it's a great gift.
Stan, do you have any questions or no?
I'm good.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a
Yeah,
question.
what?
I have a niece, and she's like she goes to school, and sometimes she has a hard time. Have a hard time. We have the parents and tell the kids, and I don't know how that works, or
Can give you his contact information.
Okay,
He's got cards and you could ask.
I can show
Okay.
them, because I'm going my sister's Friday, and I'm gonna visit for me on Friday.
Okay.
A lot of this is for kids who might have IEPs in school.
Okay.
So, you know, like when you went to like special ed room in school and stuff,
Right.
that would be, a lot of these kids would, that's who this organization would work with.
They have to have an autism diagnosis. Insurance won't cover it otherwise, even though we're capable of working on dual diagnoses. So I think you mentioned ADHD. That's relatively common.
Yeah.
And there's strategies we can help kids with that too. They have to have that ASD diagnosis or else the insurance won't cover it.
I have a question, and it's for Stan. Stan, do you want me to mail you a copy of this?
Sure, that would be nice.
Okay.
If you can email it, that's okay also.
I'll try.
I might have a copy I can get from my company that's virtual.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I can scan.
Are there any other questions?
I was just, this If I saw this card, it would make me anxious because it's Florida.
Yeah,
That's
I
where it came
know.
from, yeah.
I'm in Ludlow, Mass.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming, I appreciate it.
Sure. Do I leave? How does this
Yeah,
work?
because we're just gonna go over boring Easthampton business.
Well, if you have more
So-
questions, just feel free to reach out. Hopefully this was somewhat helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
It was.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Nice meeting everyone.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
really
you.
glad to meet you.
And feel free to reach out for more questions.
You're going home?
Great.
Yes, we
guess
can
so.
do the rest of the meeting.
All right, guys, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi.
Sure.
Are you Paul?
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Eli. Thanks for coming.
No problem.
All right.
Good.
So this is the portion about the survey update, right?
Right.
This is through the survey, correct?
Yes.
So is he gonna,
Now
what do you understand that you're here for?
Okay, so this is a little bit random for me, probably
If
for
you
you
want me to
guys.
introduce the subject, I guess.
Sure.
Okay.
Go, take it away.
Yeah, so about a year ago, we conducted a survey of disabled people in the Easthampton community. We haven't really been able to follow up on that survey in terms of like compiling the results and making a report or a presentation. And so Stan recommended that Paul St. Pierre, who's right here, might be able to help us with that. So I gave him all of the survey results, and he said that he might be able to give us some recommendations about how to proceed. Been planning on making a presentation to the city council about this from the beginning. So I'm hoping that he can give us some guidance on how to go about that.
So, hi.
Hey,
So again, I'm obviously Paul. I don't know all your names, but
My name's Dave.
We can introduce ourselves. Go ahead. You want to start?
Oh, hi, I'm Molly from the board.
Yeah, and I'm Eli Damon. We spoke before. I'm vice chair of the Commission on Disability.
About Nicholas, I mean, that at Riverside in the street,
Angelique, the
not
chair.
the street.
I'm Mary, the clerk.
This is Jenny. Oh, do you want to try this time? Okay. You want us to come back to you? Okay. I'm Jeff. I work at Riverside Industries. I'm a plumbing specialist, also an Easthampton resident.
And David, we get the big side.
I'm Jeff from the city planner, and I'm also the ADA coordinator on the commission.
And then Stan.
Hey, Paul.
okay, Stan.
You still doing it?
What's up? Is she loading the program?
She's loading.
Okay.
Should we proceed?
My name is Jenny.
Awesome.
Yay, nice.
Hey, Jenny.
Look at me.
Okay, so, so my background here, I worked on a different committee with Stan a few years back, since I know Stan, and I spoke with Eli on the phone maybe 2 weeks ago or a week ago about basically what he said just a moment ago, that he had done this survey maybe last year and was interested in kind of forming that into a presentation and making it something that's usable or helpful maybe for the city council. So I was able to look over some of the survey data that was collected, and I think there were some interesting parts of it. And also I have some just general like ideas for how you might approach looking to
do a presentation or just some of the concepts you might want to consider in that. I'm not certainly not an expert or anything, but I agreed to meet with you guys and talk about these things as far as my experience in them or what makes sense to me, and hopefully that'll be helpful. Certainly with the, I don't know where to start, with the survey or with what I think would make sense for a presentation. I guess if you're doing a presentation, you want to nail down a few different factors. The most important thing being is, what is your purpose? What is the desired outcome or intent that you have? If you're going to the city council, just to inform, that can be a purpose. If you're going because there's a specific action that you're seeking to result, that can be a purpose as well. So purpose can be very broad or it can be very specific, but it's important to state it and have it known that, so it kind of informs your whole process. You want to identify what questions that you have and that the city council might have that would stem from kind of the topic that you're looking at. Questions could be like, what could the city do to improve conditions for people with disabilities or to make things more accessible? Questions, it's a very broad topic, certainly. But based on those questions, you are going to think about what kind of information you need and what kind of information you have. And a lot of the information you have will come from the survey. You may also want to include in your presentation information that is more generalized, or that is, it could be laws, or it could be just best practices, or really just any data that would be relevant to the discussion, and just kind of evaluating that data also for how accurate it is and how relevant it is. For example, if you had done a survey 5 or 10 years ago, it wouldn't be as valuable or as accurate as data that was taken recently. So based on the data and the questions that you have and the purpose that you have, you want to, oh, I missed one. There's another part of this. It can also be very helpful to state your assumptions. Assumptions are things that we all take for granted. Like, it's a good thing to, help people who are in need, but it's beneficial when you're going through these types of processes to really clearly state your assumptions. Once you have your assumptions, your questions, your purpose, and you have your data, you can begin to make inferences. And those are kind of conclusions that you draw based on the information you have available. So a lot of the information in the survey, for example, talked about infrastructure and like sidewalk conditions and the need for sidewalks in some places where they don't have them, or for repairs in places where they do, because they're just not in good shape. So that would be a conclusion or an inference we could make would be that it would benefit people with disabilities if there were repairs done to the sidewalks. Now, it's a really simplified thing, but the reason that it holds true is because you have the data to back it up, and you have just a clear vision on that. And then the other part of that is when you're looking at implications and consequences of your stated your data or your assumptions and all these things, you have to think about how that conclusion would apply toward a bigger picture view. So if, for instance, or like, I guess what I'm saying is you evaluate whether or not it's reasonable and realistic. So if the conclusion was that like all the sidewalks need to be replaced, well, that's not really very realistic, in a short time frame, certainly. And so when you're looking at kind of what your outcomes might be, I think it's important to look at long-term and short-term, goals, because you might say that, the sidewalks are an issue, and it would benefit people with disabilities if their needs were considered by, and I don't know how the process works now, but by the DPW as they're engaging in planning for future infrastructure projects. Like, are the needs of people with disabilities being considered? And if they're not, can they be? And then maybe, the next time they do a project, the project is a little better, or it's more accommodating for people with disabilities, and as parts of the town get repaired or replaced, then over time, you have solved this issue. because you've committed to a process that is, a process of creating accessibility. Then there might be short-term solutions that you might look at and say, okay, well, here's an acute need. This is something that really sticks out that we can fix right away, that maybe isn't super expensive, or it just takes a little bit of focus, and is that something that we could make a quick change with and have a short-term, change? And so I think categorizing kind of your goals into those categorizing them into categories, yes. That's certainly helpful. So that's just kind of some general ideas about how you might want to approach creating like a presentation. But again, like the real important thing is to really know your purpose, to really have your data to back up your assumptions and your conclusions, and to make sure that what you're asking for, it really does make sense and it's realistic and it's practical. Because obviously the city has a lot of needs, there's a lot of demands. I know the survey really showed the infrastructure is a big concern, and it's also a very costly thing. But it doesn't mean that none of this is important. This is all very important. With regard to the survey itself, I looked at what Eli had kind of, well, it was interesting because there were a lot of questions in the survey which were like multiple choice, and then there were a lot of questions that were open response and people could write in their responses. And I actually found the most interesting questions to be the ones that had the open responses. And I noticed that Eli had gone through, I think you must have typed in all the responses and then kind of categorized them.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And I looked at them and
I also, like, each response might have, like, mentioned several different things, and so I chopped them up and categorized each part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. So when I looked at it, I categorized them in some places a little bit differently. There was one thing that was really interesting to me. You asked a question on the survey about whether or not it's important to have specific activities for people or events for disabled people. And then depending on how that question was answered, there was a follow-up question. Why do you think it's important to have these specific activities, or why do you not think it's important to have specific activities for people with disabilities? And even though you're asking a question where, some people said yes and some people said no, when you look at what they put in for their open response, it seemed like it didn't matter which question they asked. The answers were really all similar. So people who said that it's important to have events for disabled people would have a lot of comments that would say, it's not that we want exclusionary events, but we want to be included in events that are, commonplace, that everybody else can do, and we want to be included in things. And then that was also the answers that a lot of people who said that they shouldn't have, events specific for disabled people in them. So anyways, what I took from that, well, a couple of things. First of all, that the question itself, like, do you think it's important or do you not? It may not have been the best question because the people who answered both yes and no had the same viewpoint in many cases. But also that most of the answers spoke about either community and inclusiveness or accessibility and connection. Because there were, and it's not quite a 50-50 split. I categorized 24 responses as being related to community and inclusiveness, and that's the ideas of wanting to be part of the greater community, wanting to be included in things. And then I categorized 16 responses as being related to accessibility and connection. And those things were about people who, or responses from people who indicated that they're looking for connection within the disabled community. They're looking for ways to interact with and have events that will be accessible for them, where they can attend them and not feel like an outsider, because they have a disability. And so, and it seemed like there was a lot of feeling from the survey responses that people have that different areas or different events, they're just not accessible to them. And if they try to go to them, either they can't because of some, whether it's an infrastructure or it's a transportation need or something like that, but also that it's just that there is a feeling of being different when you have a disability. And I guess it seemed like some people were seeking kind of this community building, or this connection to others that have similar experiences to them. I also was really struck by a question on the survey, and I'm not sure how relevant the data is on this, but it was just really striking to me when the question of asking people with disabilities how they feel. And so many responses were people saying that they feel isolated, and they feel frustrated, or they feel excluded. 3 of the responses said they had no problems at all. But it just kind of was really striking me, and it was almost hard to read some of that, you know. So that was kind of the feedback that I have for you guys. I don't know if that was helpful.
Yeah.
Very
No.
helpful.
Yes, it helps. Yeah. I have a question. I want to know if you have people who are blind, can they see where they're going when they cross the street?
I don't know.
If they're from blind.
Right.
Specifically do you?
I thought about
So the beeping?
like Nikki, something like that, because she can't see, and I will make too.
What are, I don't know that that's necessarily a question for, but
Yeah.
what's,
How did people walk, how did they go walk it up?
are you wondering about accessibility for people with sight impairments?
Right.
Okay, I can answer that. They have changed the lights, they now beep, and they beep very loudly.
Right.
For people who have a hard time seeing can hear, because I can be in my car with the windows up and I can hear the beeping, and I've noticed it here, and I've noticed it up at Big
Yeah.
E's. Those 2 lights, they have fixed those. Because I know a few months ago they weren't beeping, but they are quite audible now.
Do you guys have questions for him? Could you email me that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely, sure. Yeah. So I guess the other thing that I'll say too is just some of the ideas that I had just myself as things that might be different solutions that would help people with disabilities, and whether or not you like these or not, doesn't matter to me, you know. But one thing that would seem to me that would be really helpful, and I don't know if it's possible, but if it were possible for right now we have transportation running for seniors through the senior center. There was a huge need for transportation for people with disabilities, and a lot of people in the survey saying that they don't go out into town because they feel like they can't get out into town, or there's a lack of parking available for them. There's a lack of handicap parking specifically. And if it were possible to have more local transportation on a regular basis for people with disabilities, that would make a huge difference, both in the people who play on the sidewalks, because they don't need to use the sidewalks, then it doesn't bother them as much, but also with the parking situation. If you don't need to drive your car someplace, then you don't need to park it, and then it opens up a spot for somebody else who might need to do that. Certainly, it seems to me like there's a need for accessible space or community space for people who have disabilities, where they could engage in social activities, without having to worry about, like, is this place going to be accessible to me? Like, am I able to get in? Am I going to be comfortable there? Is there going to be enough space if I have a wheelchair? Certainly, there were responses about the library, and that's been talked about for a long time, how the library is not ADA accessible. And that can be frustrating to me as a resident of the town, because how long do we have to hear this talked about before somebody feels like it matters, or is going to do something about that? But it would be interesting to see if it were possible to create some sort of small grants for businesses to increase their accessibility, either by installing ramps or addressing some of the physical infrastructures that they have. And again, these ideas, whether it's grants or a library, whatever, I haven't really deeply dove into any of these. These are just surface thoughts that I had just looking at over the data. They may or may not be helpful to you guys, but they're things that stuck out to me as opportunities for the town.
I agree, yeah.
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 So we're what do you feel like are next steps?
Uh,
So we have like maybe another survey subcommittee meeting?
Right, I feel like, yeah, so we had a survey subcommittee. I don't even remember who on that original committee is still even
Here.
on the commission anymore. So, yeah, so I think we should try to reform the survey subcommittee to work on this.
Right, and you'll email me that stuff?
And so so I'm certainly planning on being on that subcommittee. Is there, if we could work out like a meeting schedule now, that would save a lot of trouble working it out online.
I don't know if people know their schedules.
Okay.
Right.
Is there?
Is it kind of a short-term
Yep.
commitment? Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you had been on it.
Right,
and
yeah,
then
I
you didn't
can
get to do a bunch of it.
continue.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
So.
yeah, we'll have to figure out
Yeah.
times and stuff.
Right, so can we just indicate whether anyone is interested?
Right, so I'm on it, and Eli, and you said
Yes.
you'll be on it.
Yeah.
Are there other people that are interested or not particularly right now?
I think it depends on when we meet,
Yep. Okay.
because of time frames.
Right.
I mean, if we could meet either half an hour before this meeting or after this meeting, it might be more convenient if we're
Okay.
all here.
Okay, that's a good idea.
You know, we already got our time
Yeah.
planned and
Sure.
Okay. Well, thank you for,
Can I-
yeah, go
One
ahead.
thing, so just hearing Paul kind of look at the survey,
Yep.
it's with fresh eyes, it's from the outside perspective,
Right.
looking at the data, and if you had any more time available to sit with the subcommittee, because I think
Right.
Right.
you're able to see, I think from your perspective, you're able to help summarize
Yes.
more easily than people who have been looking at that survey for a long time. I know I'm particularly, I have my challenges with it because I kind of go towards looking at solutions, and there are problems, and the solutions are challenging to figure out, and so I automatically come with that sort of lens, which is why I've kind of stepped back from it, because I don't think it's helpful for me to be part of that, because I don't want to become, a person who says, well, that's going to be hard to do, or you can't do that. But I think the summary of it is what has a little bit eluded the committee to come up with a way to summarize the results, even as the first step. So summarizing with the city council with possible, issues to solve in the future. And I think if that was the goal of the subcommittee, to come up with a kind of a concise way to summarize the results, that would be huge. I think that's been kind of the challenge of the commission, come up with a summary of it. I think when you're looking at the data, you see certain things, and it's easy to focus on those, but from the outside perspective, you could help summarize kind of some of the key data points. That would be really helpful.
Yeah.
I think.
And we might have a disagreement about like what the goals should be beyond that, but yeah, I think we can all agree that, summarizing the data in a useful way would be the first goal.
Because I think so just to add on that, I think part of the presentation to City Council, similar to what we're going to talk about with the public service announcement for snow removal, is that is the opportunity to tell the community about the survey results. And what often happens, and the best thing that can happen is if we can get an article in the Gazette about it. And what the Gazette wants is the easily to digest summary topics. I mean, that's getting the word out about the survey. And that's kind of the thing that's where the commission's been heading. But it's been a challenge to get to that point. So I think if you're willing to be around for a little bit longer and help summarize from your perspective, that would be useful.
Certainly. Well, if you decide when you want to have a meeting, a subcommittee, if you think it would be helpful, and if I'm available, I'll certainly be happy to.
thank you, I think.
Thank you so much. So I will include you on the scheduling
Scenario.
thing. Yeah.
Thank you for coming, I appreciate it. Sure.
Thank you.
Angelique?
Yep.
If we can do these meetings with remote participation, if it was right after this meeting, for example, I would be willing to participate also.
Okay.
Okay, great.
It might all be on Zoom, or, depending, so we'll see.
Sure.
All right, great, thank you, we'll talk. Okay, so, next, so as far as new school tour dates, did anybody go on the 22nd to Mountain View?
I couldn't.
You did? That was the open house that they had. So she's supposed to get back to me with some dates, because I met with Jean Libby, I believe is her name.
Yes. the
So,
community-
yeah, but we're going back and forth, so she's gonna get me some, you went on the tour? On the 22nd, or you walked around?
I've been there before, my daughter gave me a tour.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think, what's your impression? I think the accessibility in the school is miles ahead of what we had in the other schools. My comment from that experience was actually the walking path from Whitebrook from Nonotuck to Whitebrook was disgraceful.
Okay.
Poorly marked, poor accessibility. There was just roots on the path. There were areas that looked like it should have been the way, and my 7-year-old had to tell me, no, Daddy, it's that way.
Okay.
And otherwise I would have been wondering.
Nice.
But mostly it's just, I'm so upset that they took the school out of the neighborhood and put it all the way over there. It's just, it's infuriating and a microaggression. Every time I think about it, that I'll just never be able to walk my daughter up at school again.
Right.
It's really, I'm infuriated that whoever even discussed that area. I'm disgusted that they would just exclude a whole generation of parents and say we'll deal with it in 10 years when the infrastructure is in place.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, but, and no one's going to use that playground because it's in bad school. There's just going to be no fun. And that's my experience.
Okay.
The playground
The school-
behind
the-
the
It's behind the
The-
school?
Yeah, the facilities. We
Okay.
needed an updated facility. It should never have been there.
All right.
I-
Well,
You should
so
be
we'll-
there at night when it's all lit up. At 7 o'clock, the football field lights go on every night. And at 6 in the morning, it looks like the school is in, it's so bright you wouldn't believe it.
Oh.
It's waking people up with a tree.
They're on all night, the football field lights?
They went on last night they went on about 6:30, 6:45 last night. Full bright. You would have thought they were having a game. And they were still on when I shut my light off at 7:30. In the morning, we went out last week about 6:30 because we had to go into Hoyoke and hit the football field, the school.
Oh, 'cause you're at Treehouse?
Yeah, everything was lit up. The electricity.
I didn't think about
Yeah,
that.
they-
Say something. We should find a way for you to say something. I don't think that the intent was to have them on all the time.
Oh,
It seemed like they just got installed.
Whatever the
But-
timer is around, but I know others from Treehouse have complained.
Oh.
I see it when I'm outside, and I
Right.
think it's a waste of electricity. The cost is, you wouldn't believe how lit up, if you went there in the morning, how lit up the school is. It's unbelievable.
When I've talked to Mayor LaChapelle, just randomly, she's really sensitive to learning issues, so she's a good audience.
Okay, well, I'll get back to you guys with the dates. Look for an email, so hopefully it's before the next meeting. Sorry you're going through that, guys, yeah.
I have say
Yeah.
something to Jeff's point. So, as the planner, I wasn't involved with where the school was getting located. That seemed to have been a decision quite a long time ago, going all the way back to possibly 2008. But the reality, I think, is that we as a city have a long-term, it's going to take years to get people reoriented to that new location. We do have a grant to connect the bike path up Park Street, and there's supposed to be it's going to be an accessible grade ramp that goes from the bike path along Park Street with like 10-foot wide.
Are there gonna be walkable neighborhoods nearby built there so that people can live near the,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean,
The other thing was,
zoning, you
with the
know.
walking path, there is a project kind of that I'm involved with, and I'm working with the Parks Director to formalize the connection between the high school and the elementary school, which will be that same route,
Yeah,
but it's like a $1 million project to make
Yeah.
that an accessible route.
that's
That's probably a
nice.
couple years away.
Yeah,
but
that's.
But it's also just far for people,
Right,
even if
it is
there's a
hard.
walk.
And so that's
Yeah.
gonna be a challenge that we can't remove that, but we have seen people potentially parking at non-front of high school to get closer and then using the walking path.
Yeah.
But it is all gonna be a work in progress
I get
for a long
that,
time.
and is public transportation gonna allow me to pick up my daughter if she gets called?
It's a great question.
Right.
You know, if I
Right.
get called at like 11
Right.
saying she's sick, do I have to walk like an hour through the woods to get there?
Yeah,
You know, I mean, that's just.
Over the river and through the wood, yeah.
Yeah, it's, I mean, and I know the answer is no, but I mean, that's absolutely just, you know,
Yeah.
insulting that the town picked that location.
Well, yeah, they didn't take parents into consideration like that, picking up the child.
That don't have transportation or
Yeah, or
Yeah.
transportation,
disabled
because,
or.
yeah.
I mean, I had the same concerns about how isolated that location is. I mean, it's kind of not, it's kind of not far from a lot of things, but it's not connected to any of them. Like, right, like it's close to Holyoke Street, but you can't get to Holyoke Street from there, right? And it's close to, you know, Park Street, but you can't really get to Park Street from there.
Well, even I had an issue with,
I
they
mean,
have,
you can get there, but it's like, it's a long
You
trip,
can't-
and there's
you have two
nothing like
ways to
along the
get
way to it.
you can go in through Park Street, or you go down Button through Treehouse, and you can get in that way. And they basically meet like that. I had an issue with, if you need fire from Holyoke, or some South Hadley or something, they're coming over the mountain. They have to come all the way around to get there, to help. Emergencies, they have no access from Holyoke Street. They have to come all the way through town to get there. And that surprised me, that the both entrances to the facility connect here, instead of having one here and one over there coming at different directions.
Well, I can put it on the agenda if you guys want to talk about it more, but we have
Yeah,
like a
I think
couple
we
more
do.
things.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just don't see what we're gonna do about it.
Right.
Sure, it's all.
Okay.
There isn't anything
All right.
really we can do.
No way, don't look at it.
Okay, so Stan, can you say for 2 minutes about the CVS labels?
Sure. I have been a longtime customer of CVS on Northampton Street, and they have initiated a new feature that will work with the CVS app on a smartphone, and the person you have to sign up for this at your CVS branch and identify yourself as having sight issues that you can't read your prescription labels. And when they fill your prescription, they will put a special barcode on the prescription that you can scan with your smartphone, and it will read off to you. It will play an audio playback of the instructions for the medication, how you would take it, what the side effects might be, and similar things that you would find on printed information that you may not be able to read. I thought this was a major breakthrough. I had seen a lot of other discussions about it on various handicap websites, and I was very happy to see that CVS was actually implementing that. especially now that more people will be using CVS since the Walgreens are closing down.
Right.
So that's basically it. They would, each person who needs that service would have to register with CVS, would have to have a smartphone, would have to download the app, but then could hear how to take and use their prescriptions.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you.
Dad?
So we have two more things
And I have a couple
for,
for
yeah.
old and new.
Yeah.
Okay. So quickly, I just wanted to say that for the public service announcement for the snow removal, Wednesday, me and Eli are just gonna go to the city council meeting. I mean, anybody can go, it's public, so, and just quickly talk about the public service announcement. Did you want to say anything about it, or not particularly?
Is it
right?
on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It is. They maybe they didn't send it to you, but yeah, we're on there. I just don't know what time, and it's a 3-hour meeting, so
Oh,
it looks in the beginning.
could you let me know, because I like to go through it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And you? Okay.
When is,
Yeah.
what time does the meeting start?
6. So 6 to 9. That's a long meeting, wow.
Yeah.
I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's it gonna be held?
Not 10 a.m. to 9
Zoom,
a.m.
most likely, I mean, it's here, but you can do
Put it on the-
Google
in the
Meets.
morning.
I mean, I need to,
Yeah.
Can I have a computer that I
Yeah.
can go out to do?
Okay,
You're gonna have to call
Yeah.
my house. If I give you my phone number, call the house number, and you're gonna let them know what time to go on.
okay. Sure,
Okay. I can give you.
Go ahead,
my
Jeff.
number.
okay.
Yes,
I mean, you would have to go through him, like I would be,
Like
you
like
know,
how-
like you could send
Send me my stuff.
the Zoom link for
The Zoom link,
a meeting,
Go
yeah.
back to your check.
Okay, go ahead. The chaos over
I
there.
was just gonna say that what I would expect is for the Gazette to wanna reach out to you after that.
Yep,
That's
okay.
kinda how that's the pattern I mentioned before, but I think that's really positive,
Okay,
is by going to city council, the Gazette reporter usually attends those meetings, and I think it's something that she would probably wanna cover as an article.
okay, what's her name?
Emily Thurlow.
Okay,
And that's a good thing, because I think that's what the goal was, to get people aware of the video, and obviously just the
Yeah.
concept of people clearing their walks this winter.
okay, thank you.
I'd like to do that.
So the other thing that I wanted to bring up before Mary says what she needs to say is that I've been on this commission for a long time, and I had started a project. It was a panel on PTSD where I had folks that have different forms of PTSD come, and then they're like appropriate person that would handle them. Like, because people think PTSD is just from the military. I mean, that is one, so I would have them come, but there are others. And I had completed the project, and then somebody didn't like it, so shut it down. But I would like to bring it back, because what I'm hearing is like people do want to know about PTSD and things like that. So I just wanted to throw it out there for now. It's thrown. That's right.
No,
And if you want to help me with it, you guys are more than welcome. So I'll keep the discussion open.
Yeah, let me know how I can help.
Okay.
I think you've done a great job bringing all the speakers here.
Yeah,
To
thank
inform
you.
people about what's out there for services. I think it's a good job.
Thank you.
I like to do.
Thank you. Thank you a lot. You have something, right? So you're gonna do the update on the accessibility?
Two things. One, the phone numbers that you and I had worked on, those emergency phone
Yes.
numbers. And I had handed them out last week at last meeting, if anyone had any changes or anything, because we got to get that.
Right.
I mean, otherwise it'll be another year or two and then
No,
we have
yeah.
to start over.
So I didn't hear from anybody, so I don't,
What are the I don't think I know that.
Okay.
it's a resource guide, it's
It's
an
a
older one, and then she added to, we talked about a little
Okay,
bit.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the emergency services.
Great.
Did you
So-
get one, Jeff?
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I mean, I don't know if we want to update that on the website or
Yeah, I mean,
how you want to go about it.
yeah, who puts stuff on the website?
Is it?
Yes, exactly.
I thought it was Kareem who puts things on.
Is it?
it's a gray area. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out the best way to
Okay.
get it up.
All right, well,
Okay,
yeah.
so
We might
we'll
build
put it on for the next meeting?
Yeah.
I might be able to help with that.
Okay, and then the accessibility training tomorrow. For who's ever taken it tomorrow, I would suggest that you print out your paperwork today. The first,
Paperwork, what do you mean?
well, they have, it's a slideshow, but you can print it out and go along with them. Okay, it's 76 pages for tomorrow's event.
Otherwise, you just follow along the
You
screen.
can follow along.
Okay.
And then the next one is like over 30, so you got over 100. I got the book right here, I put all mine in
So
a
it's
binder.
it's a 3-hour training?
Oh,
on
no,
2 days?
No, it's
What is
long, it's a full day training.
It's an
Two
8?
full days.
2 full, and when you get half an
Oh,
hour
that's
for
right.
lunch,
Okay.
and it goes the full time. I found it quite interesting. Even Eli said, though, the first one was a little, it's,
Can you tell them what it's about, in case they
all right.
don't know?
It basically, once you're finished the 2 days of training, you receive a certificate, so that if I walked into a place and I looked and I went, oh, geez, this really isn't accessible, or this isn't right, I could say something very nicely to the person, okay? Or there's a form that you can fill out, okay? I don't feel comfortable doing that unless I really knew the person. But they give you all the rules and regulations, all the specifications. They show, it was more, I think, beyond our scope almost. Unless we really want to start going into places and saying la la la.
That is how we started, actually. That
Okay.
was like our main
Right.
thing, and we didn't handle mental health back then, so I kind of steered it that way.
Yeah, it's, but it was all really numbers, and, oh, this parking space doesn't have this much room on this side, or, the incline of it goes into every single solitary.
Is it community access monitoring training?
Yes, community
Oh,
access.
okay.
It's more, who was the gentleman who, the 2 gentlemen who did the ADA survey?
came in.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I think it's aimed more towards them. But, I mean, it is interesting, some of it was, you have to be careful. There is one of the speakers, she tends to mumble a little. So I would suggest possibly having your closed captioning on if you have it. That's what I did.
That's your review?
Yeah, I did that for her, because she did kind of, and she would be reading as she's talking, so all you saw was the side of her face, so you
lip
couldn't like
reading
read her
either.
lips or anything.
Okay.
They're very knowledgeable. The gentleman, I forget his
2
name.
8-hour days.
2 8-hour, and trust me, full 8-hour days.
That's why I can't do it. I can't.
Except for a half an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the book.
I don't think it's 8 hours a day. It's like.
It's 9 to
9:30.
2 or something.
Yeah.
Let's see, I forget. It's Ashley is the one who
4.5.
gets a little, she mumbles a little. And you only see the side of her face, so you have to kind of put closed captioning.
Always look to you for the truth, that's for sure.
I'm just, but yeah, it's 9:30 a.m. It starts, and I think we got over about 2. And you have a half an hour for lunch.
And you need a nap after, is that what you're saying?
They're very
I need a nap.
knowledgeable. I did notice a lot of people shut off their cameras so they could walk and do things.
Yeah.
Do they talk about, because the commission has talked about this for, on and off
Yeah.
for a while, which is if someone encounters an issue on private property, so like at a store, and you think that there's some kind of violation of an accessibility requirement, there's a process that you submit that to the Mass Office of Disability at the state.
Right.
Did they talk about that at all?
They
'Cause then
talked about that.
For public property, so like a city program or a city building, that we have a process where it comes to me as the ADA coordinator, and there's a look at what the issue was, and then there's a requirement that the city respond within
Yeah.
15 days.
You have to respond within a specific, they
We've
addressed
always
stuff.
talked about, if you were a resident in Easthampton and, encountered something that was a question, coming to the commission for help navigating the process. And now I think, Mary, we have a higher level of expertise. Maybe there's a newer
No,
thing
it
that the commission
basically,
could help.
they did have forms that, like, we could fill out. If I went into, I don't know, I'm just looking,
Any store.
any store up the street. Technically, they're private, but they're open for business.
Right.
So they have to follow. They were very good at explaining the dollar amounts as to if you're gonna renovate. You know, it's up to a certain amount of money this, and they were very good at that. You know, would I feel comfortable going in and assessing a place? No, I don't feel. Maybe if I had more practice at it.
Right.
But if I went into a place, all right, I'll use the example. My father was wheelchair, could barely, you know, he had had a stroke and he had trouble walking. My parents loved Mel's Restaurant in Hoyle. Okay. Trying to get him in there was difficult. Okay. And we said something because that was his favorite restaurant. You know, so we said, so what her idea was, she just took a board and made a little ramp for us to get the wheelchair out. Okay. If I felt comfortable, you know, or if I was trying to get someone in there. I did ask a question which sticks out because the gentlemen who were here on the ADA spoke about the issues at the new school.
Right.
Okay, and that has bothered me since he said them, okay? That should have never happened, okay? And I did ask if the people who do the contractors, general contractors, have to be up to date. And it is their responsibility. Because my main concern is the city's gonna sit there and say, oh, okay, well, we gotta fix it. No, we don't have to pay for it. The general contractor is responsible. And that, because I thought that was the case, but I wanted to verify it. Because they have to be up to date on every single thing. And they have to be licensed to do it. And, but some of it did go over our heads.
Yeah, and I think the bottom line for the commission is if someone encounters a situation, they're recommended to go to the state with a complaint.
Right. Well, you start
So-
with the person, there's a letter you can send and that says I'm
Right.
certified, la la la. But my thought is if you find something that's really, you could very nicely just call them aside and discuss it with them.
And if they don't respond.
And if they don't respond, then you keep going. Because I think it's just more acceptable to be nice and polite. Because you don't want to go out and say, oh, I'm on the Commission of Disabilities. One, we have no IDs to say that, okay? And two, oh, and I'm now certified and you're going to bring out your certification. And they're going to say, oh, Christ, this person is trouble, you know?
They're gonna spit in your hamburger.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Probably.
So,
I think we lost the Google Meet. I think,
Yeah.
Eli, what did we lose? The
where did
owl?
Stan signed off?
Yeah.
What's that?
The owl.
The owl
So
sign.
this
Oh,
turned
yeah,
red.
so my
but-
monitor is, something happened, like, this is, like,
Right.
my monitor shut off,
Okay.
so I don't know what's going on now.
So what I want to do is after, because we have to close the meeting,
Okay.
is after the other folks take it, is I would like to have a discussion because before I was chair, there were people that were on it and they did want to go to businesses or they did go to, it was Burger King, they were really hung up on the door. It was very heavy, it's more than
That-
8 pounds or something
yeah,
like that.
That was addressed. But I think I would feel
Yeah.
more comfortable, like if I accompanied you for, you know.
I think Jeff has time to go. He works 24/7.
You know,
I think putting it on the agenda for a next discussion is good because I think there's a gray area. So if you're going into a restaurant, the city can only do so much
Right.
until the complaint or the issue goes to the state because they have the authority to actually step in.
but
So
what
talking
I
about that would be helpful.
Yeah,
just
I
that
think
process.
I meant is accompanying somebody
Yes.
who's an expert in the situation and see how see now this is really, instead of me looking at these,
Sure.
you know,
Well, I am not that expert, but
Right.
or like
Yeah.
those gentlemen
Make sure
who
that's
came,
clear.
Right.
you know.
I mean, the training is for you to to do it.
Right, but
But I know you don't feel comfortable.
I don't feel
Yeah.
comfortable on my own for the first couple of times. I would
Right.
like to accompany somebody.
I don't know that we could, I don't know how we,
You
because they'd
know.
have to be paid to go out and look
Right,
and stuff.
you know,
I don't
but it-
Okay.
I do think, and once you take the training, then there is advanced training.
Okay,
So you just keep moving up. But if you, I did print everything out.
okay. Yes,
That's great.
so,
Also, one more thing,
Yeah.
regarding the resource list, I have a memory of you needing some kind of help with the technology thing. I don't know if that's
Around
still
it?
true.
I don't
Or-
remember.
No, okay, well, never mind, but,
And it didn't wake me up during the night, so we couldn't have.
Is it- I love it. So the next meeting is December 6th, and I just wanted to say real quick, so when we identify ourselves, like we're on a commission, because I know I've heard board, and I think that confuses people, but I've also heard people say the Council on Disability, so like, we're on all in the commission, so we just try to remember that, because otherwise it might seem like you guys are part of something else that is not this. So technically you're commissioners, I've been
Right.
told, so I could
Yes,
be
we
like
are.
commissioner,
Yes, you do.
right? You get a little tight, yes. So,
Hoyle gave us IDs. We had IDs if we went somewhere, like when we.
what happened, Mayor? Where's our
Yeah.
fancy
Like
IDs?
we would check out for
Yeah.
parking spots
Yeah.
to see if they were needed, and we had to
Okay.
wear our,
Ah,
Yeah, where was that?
in Hoyle. Yeah.
You
We-
want a badge, don't you?
I don't.
No. And eat the Halloween candy.
I am.
Okay, so.
Yeah, you be,
Yeah, do you guys have stuff that you want on the next agenda, or are there action items that we need to make sure, particularly other than what we said before we close? Anything?
yeah.
Stan?
This is my first time being here, so, I want to, come to do this more often.
Yeah, we'll see
About
how many-
having-
how many people we have. and
Thank you for
how much
coming.
much more chance, but
Right.
If you like it, I'll definitely keep you in mind.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
You second?
Second.
Okay, everybody okay with leaving?
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good job.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.